The static bends tonight over salt and storm. I hear the crack of canvas torn by winds that never sleep, and the groan of wood that should have sunk centuries ago. The mist grows thicker as the signal rises, seeping into the cracks of this world. It tastes of brine, and it carries the sound of rigging strained beyond reason. A ship drifts endlessly, never making harbor, yet always seen when disaster is near. Some call it an omen, some a curse, others a warning sent by the sea itself. But all sailors speak its name in dread. The Flying Dutchman, the signal has chosen to carry its story. Step carefully, for when the sea gives voice to memory, it seldom does so without a price.
The sea has always been both path and prison. To live upon it is to live at the mercy of moods beyond comprehension. One moment calm, silvered in moonlight. The next, black, heaving and hungry. Even the bravest sailor knows that in the ocean's heart, human will is a candle in a gale. Now imagine you stand on the deck at night. The horizon has vanished, swallowed by a wall of fog. The lanterns flicker, though no wind stirs, and the only sound is the groan of timbers under strain. Then, through the mist, something emerges. A ship, but not like any you've seen. Its sails hang in tatters, yet swell with an invisible wind. Its masts tower unnaturally tall, and the hull gleams with a faint phosphorescence, as if the sea itself has carved its outline from lightning. The crew stand rigid, unmoving, their faces shadowed, and their eyes, if they can be called eyes, glowing faintly with the hue of embers dying in a grate. No signal, no greeting, no sound of ropes or waves. The vessel glides as though the water itself recoils from its touch, and then, as quickly as it came, it dissolves back into fog, leaving nothing but silence and the bitter knowledge that to see it is no accident. To see the Dutchman is to be marked, yet every apparition, no matter how terrifying, begins somewhere. To understand why sailors still whisper the Dutchman's name, we must turn back to the Cape of Good Hope, where ocean and legend first collided. The roots of the legend lie in the most unforgiving waters on Earth, the Cape of Good Hope, where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans collide in chaos. Here, storms rise without warning, currents twist like serpents, and countless ships have splintered against rocks that loom invisible until too late. For centuries, rounding the Cape was both a test of courage and an invitation to tragedy. In this crucible of danger, the Dutchman's tale was born. Some say it began with Captain Hendrik van der Decken, a Dutch East India Company trader driven by pride, profit, or perhaps madness. When a storm struck, his crew begged to turn back. Instead, he defied them, swearing he would round the Cape, even if it took until doomsday. The ocean, or something older that moves within it, answered. From that moment, his ship was cursed to sail forever, never reaching port. Others claimed darker origins. Perhaps van der Decken bargained with infernal forces for swifter passage, or desecrated a holy relic carried on board. In some versions, the crew themselves mutinied and murdered their chaplain, sealing their fate in blood. But whether born of hubris, blasphemy, or bargain, the result was the same. The Dutchman became an eternal wanderer, a vessel cut loose from the mercy of both man and God. The story spread like wildfire. British sailors adopted it into their own lore. German poets retold it as grim ballads. Scandinavian fishermen folded it into their myths of eternal wanderers. The Dutchman ceased to be just a ship. He became a symbol, the embodiment of every seafarer's deepest fear, that the sea would claim not only their lives, but their very right to rest. But legends gain power not through whispers alone. They endure because men insist they have seen them, and those sightings carry the weight of death and storm. Legends survive because someone swears they are true. And the Flying Dutchman has been seen too often, by too many, to be dismissed as a mere fireside tale. In 1835, sailors off the Cape reported the phantom ship. The lookout cried out its presence, describing masts and sails glowing with unnatural light. Hours later, that same lookout fell to his death. The men whispered it was no coincidence. The Dutchman does not appear without claiming a life. In 1881, the legend gained an unsettling stamp of credibility. Prince George of Wales, later King George V, was serving as a midshipman aboard the HMS Bacchante. He and a dozen others saw a glowing brig cut across their bow, crimson light illuminating its every spar. He wrote of it in his diary, careful not to omit the detail that, before dawn, another ship in their convoy struck rocks and sank. For the superstitious, and for sailors, superstition is survival. This was proof enough. And the sightings did not end with the age of sail. Fishermen in the North Sea spoke of seeing a ship glowing pale green, its sails impossibly full, despite dead air. Off Table Bay in South Africa, locals whispered of the Dutchman's silhouette shimmering on the horizon at dusk. Even in the 20th century, wartime sailors told of spectral vessels glimpsed in fog. Whether hallucinations of exhaustion or something older, who can say? Each sighting bore the same warning. The Dutchman's appearance is not idle spectacle. It is a harbinger. Storms, wrecks, or death followed soon after. To see it was to know the sea had marked you, and it was already too late. Fear alone cannot keep men safe at sea. And so, over centuries, rituals and customs were born. Fragile shields against the shadow of a ship that would never die. Sailors, though hardened, have always been superstitious, because superstition is another name for survival. Against the Dutchman, they armed themselves not with cannon or cutlass, but with ritual. To utter its name at sea was taboo. Whispering Flying Dutchman was thought to call it closer, to draw its attention like a beacon. If the cursed ship was sighted, many captains ordered immediate course changes, no matter how costly. Weeks lost were preferable to damnation earned. Crews would fall to prayer, fingers fumbling over rosaries, lips mumbling half-remembered psalms. Others turned to offerings. A measure of rum poured into the sea, bread broken and tossed into waves, even drops of blood spilled onto the deck to appease whatever force ruled the ship's fate. Some captains ordered iron nails driven into the mast or deck, a talisman said to anchor the ship in this world and repel spirits adrift. Whistling was banned. Its notes were believed to summon winds that might carry the Dutchman in their wake. And when courage wavered, men huddled together, drawing strength not from ritual's power, but from its shared belief. Yet beneath every rite was an admission. No sailor truly believed he could ward off the Dutchman. Rituals calmed the living, but they did not sway the cursed. For a ship condemned to eternity, no offering could suffice. And so, terror gave way to pity. For what fate is worse than death at sea? Perhaps only this: to never find a grave, to sail until the end of time with no release. Behind the terror lies sorrow. For every man who spoke of dread, another whispered pity. The Dutchman's crew were men once, sailors with families, homes and hopes, now bound forever to canvas and wood, exiled from rest. Some tales insist the Dutchman's crew are not hostile, but mournful. There are stories of spectral letters, sealed in tar, hurled onto passing ships. When opened, they bore names of the long dead, addressed to towns long vanished. To receive such a letter was a curse, yet perhaps also a plea, a desperate attempt by souls adrift to remind the world they had once lived, loved, and been remembered. In this light, the Dutchman ceases to be a predator and becomes a symbol of grief. How many sailors were lost at sea, their bodies never returned, their fates unknown. To those left ashore, the Dutchman gave form to their mourning. It allowed them to imagine that their husbands, sons, and brothers were not gone entirely, but still sailing, trapped between this world and the next. And so the ship endures as a vessel of sorrow as much as fear. It is a warning of pride and defiance, yes, but it is also a lament, the ocean's way of saying that the lost are never entirely gone. And yet, the Dutchman's sorrow is not frozen in the past. He sails into the present too, haunting the edges of our modern seas, proving that no age of technology can outpace a curse. Why does the Dutchman still haunt us, centuries after it first cut through misty tales? Perhaps because it is not just a ghost story, but a reflection of humanity's deepest anxieties. The Flying Dutchman embodies the terror of endless wandering. To live is to journey toward rest, toward harbor, toward closure. But the Dutchman sails without end, denied peace, denied resolution. He mirrors our fear of striving without reward, of labor without rest, of life without meaning. On land, we whisper of cursed soldiers who march beyond death, of travelers who cannot stop walking, of hitchhikers who vanish at their destination. At sea, it is the Dutchman, our sailor's version of the eternal exile. The story endures because it is not about sails and rigging. It is about us, our ambition, our defiance, our fragile place in a world that can so easily swallow us whole. Even today, in an age of steel hulls and satellite navigation, sailors tell of phantom ships. Cargo crews speak of lights that drift where no vessel should be. Fishermen whisper of masts that shimmer in fog, vanishing when approached. Whether mirage or memory, the Dutchman sails still, because we cannot let him go. He has become not just a ghost, but a myth of what happens when humanity dares the abyss and loses. And so, as the tale closes, the Dutchman becomes not only a warning, but a memory, a reminder that the sea never forgets those it has taken. The Flying Dutchman is not just a cursed vessel. He is the echo of every shipwreck, every body swallowed, every family left waiting at the shore. He is the sea's memory, a reminder that the ocean never releases what it claims. So when you stand at the coast on a foggy night and glimpse a pale light far on the horizon, consider what you are seeing. Perhaps it is another vessel, bound for port, safe and ordinary. Or perhaps it is the Dutchman, still keeping his endless vigil, never permitted to rest. We retell his story not just to frighten, but to remember. For to forget the Dutchman would be to forget all those who vanished into the waves, whose names live only in echoes and prayers.
The signal fades, but the sea does not forget. The Dutchman sails still, unseen except in storm and silence. Some say his curse was born of defiance. Others whisper it was a bargain struck, a debt unpaid, stretching across centuries. I will tell you this much. The sea has claimed more than ships and sailors. It holds secrets far older than wood and canvas. And sometimes when the static carries their voices, I hear them calling, not for salvation, but for witness. The Dutchman is not the only vessel adrift in eternity. In the archives of the abyss, there are others, ships with no name, their sails woven not of cloth but of shadow, their crews forgotten even by death. To glimpse them is to know the ocean keeps a ledger, and it never loses count. And deeper still, below the storms and wreckage, something stirs. stirs. The sailors' whispers called it the Kraken, but I have heard other names, older ones, spoken only in currents. They feared it as a beast, but fear misunderstands. Some creatures do not serve the sea, they are the sea. I wonder sometimes if the Dutchman sails not alone, but under a watchful eye. Perhaps its curse is not punishment, but guardianship, a reminder from the depths that man's dominion is fragile and brief. Remember this, wanderer. When you look into the waves look back. Time is short. Other signals drift closer even now. Hear them while you can, before they vanish.